Welcome to Mudimo Awaz, a podcast presented by Musico. I'm your host Mohua. On this podcast, we will talk to dreamers, unsung heroes who have broken the rules as they swam against the current and renewed their vows to themselves as individuals. The believers who've been crazy to start ventures that have made a difference to society and the lives they've touched with their magnanimity and knowledge. As for me, I was in the communications business in a leadership role and also been a homemaker. The slow death of my self-confidence that went unnoticed over the years, when self-worth was based on the validation I sought from others. Quoting the author Elif Shafak, do not go with the flow, be the flow. In this episode, we have Meghna Khanna, entrepreneur, vintage motorcycle enthusiast. She runs an online store called Levitate that has her designs, and also she handpicks craft and designs jewelry. And the best part about Meghna is that you can find her in a crowded room and she manages to occupy space with her personality that oozes confidence. She's artsy, she's bohemian, and she calls herself an escape artist. Welcome, Meghna.
Thank you so much, Mo.
So tell me, Meghna, the genesis of Levitate, where did it begin? What was the inspiration? And, Levitate was my go-to store when I had come into Bangalore many years back. And it's a store where you can never tire over spending, even an hour. You will find something or the other that you would want to take back. Of course, now everything is online. And I just want to know, from where did you get that inspiration to start a store and the confidence to start something that's so bohemian, so kitschy, and yet it had character. It has character.
Yeah.
So how did you start this?
So I have to say, Mo, that the story goes back to my childhood and growing up in parts of Gujarat and Rajasthan. I spent extended years there. Last few years of school was in Jodhpur in Rajasthan. And I used to get 100 rupees spending money from my parents, and I would take this 8-seater, the bigger version of the auto, and I would go into town. And I would have a tough time, spending that 100 rupees, because all I wanted to do was walk the streets, the by lanes, the narrowest lanes, the ones that didn't seem to take any traffic, but just everybody seemed to be able to fit in there. And just the tiniest spaces, the people creating things, making craft, making, things that you would not see on even the main road in that city itself. And so I spent a lot of time during my growing up years doing that. And thereafter, it was a graduation. I studied in Pune. I did my MBA. And it was just a process of keep studying while my parents could afford to send me to, do your MBA and stuff. And then post that, I got a job. I moved to Bombay. And I spent a year there. And within that year, it was the first day of my job. And I decided that this was too corporate for me. And I really wasn't cut out for this. Even though, through that time, my learning graph went really through the roof. I was working with an all-women team. And I had
that must be really interesting.
Really, really interesting. And for the first time that happened for me, I was a tomboy. I used to hang out with the boys growing up. And I had this lady boss, and she was really, really the coolest thing. And so it was a great, experience for me, having to show up, be there on time, do my, learn from her. So, but at the onset, at the first day of my job, I had decided that this was not my scene. But I couldn't walk away from it because that would be giving up. So I gave myself 1 year, and I said that I will stick it out for a year. And I joined on the 4th of July in 2001, and I quit on the 4th of July in 2002. And during that time, even in Bombay, right, it's a city that sucks you in. I could see that I could get really much better at what I did. I could get accustomed to this life of hurry, of, really hurrying through life, in every aspect. Running for my train in the morning to get to work in high heels, no less. I'd be running up the stairs to that train station, always late. So post that, I decided to quit. And everybody asked me, are you nuts? How can you leave a, well-paying job? And what's your plan? My parents were really concerned. What's the plan? And I had to say, I have no plan. And they were a little worried about that. And everybody around me was kind of, anxious about what this girl is going to be doing and what she's going to be up to. So anyhow, I spent 6 months traveling around. I went home. My parents were in Srinagar at the time. And I spent like just time, Ladakh, this thing. I was just moving around a lot.
So you traveled all by yourself?
Yeah, I did a lot of that.
Okay, solo traveling.
Yeah, solo traveling. And then I decided to move to Bangalore because it was the one city that I'd not lived in till that time. And I also heard that during my student years in Pune, I had heard that Bangalore was the next level. That here you would meet like 40-year-olds who didn't know what they wanted to do in life or, what they wanted to be when they grew up. So that was really interesting as a concept.
It's such an amazing thing you said that, 40-year-olds, they want to know what they would do when they grow up.
Exactly. So, and really that was the case because there were people who were reinventing their lives. They were looking at new things to do. And I was just barely like 22, 23 when I moved here. And I moved in July. And at that time, my friends were planning to start a restaurant. And I had told my parents that I'm coming to Bangalore and I will find another research job. But I had no intentions of doing that. And they said, why don't you start a space? You've been wanting to do something. Why don't you start a space? And we'll give you this little storeroom inside the restaurant. And, you can start a little shop there. So I started with all of 70,000 rupees. That was given to me by my angel investor, a dear friend. And so that's how Levitate started. Because, again, like you said, when you came to Bangalore, there wasn't anything in the city that had that feel of craft, of Indian design, of things that were made in India. Everything was being exported. It wasn't even seeing the South Indian, market at all. And everything was between like things made in China and, things on the street or very high-end designer stores.
There was nothing, no in between.
There was no in between.
Absolutely.
Actually, Bangalore had a lot of access to Goa, and that was where they would find the bohemian feel products and like a hippie finds. So I had decided to kind of start that Levitate at that time because I wanted to fill in the gap. There was a big gap. The gap was like humongous. I could see it like very clearly, and I decided to fill that gap, and that's how Levitate came about. And it's been a real journey, like a real special journey, because I couldn't have done it in any other city. I feel like Bangalore was just the perfect.
It's an iconic store.
It's such a, and it
was the most, that's your store had so much of character. It was an iconic store, Levitate, for sure.
Yes.
It broke all barriers, from the products that you kept there.
Yes.
So when you say hippie, are you a hippie?
Yeah, I'm a hippie at heart for sure. And
what do you mean when you say that, Meghna?
Because it's the non-conforming to society that I've always kind of it's always embodied me, and it was I think difficult for my parents at many levels because I always wanted to do something different. It was never it was not an effort. It was never an effort that because you are doing this, so I want to find something that I want to do different. It was never an effort. It was always something that came very naturally to me. And I felt that it was my duty to kind of, explore that and work in that direction because it was very difficult for me to cover up that or to be something else who would merge in or conform to society. It was much easier to just be that.
But it must have been a very difficult journey because, we come from a time when being different, is something that, you're all the time questioned by your peers because it's so much. Now I think, I'm so happy when I meet youngsters today because they're really talking a new language. And they're sure of themselves when it comes to relationships, when it comes to style. I just recently saw a video I think about a month back where there's this girl wearing a sari and she does this with the hoopla. She's dancing and it went viral, that
that's
video.
That's true. I saw that as well. It's really, really cool.
It is so cool because, Indian clothing is very comfortable. And so all of that I think is a change now. But from the time that we come from that space where people will question you if you're a nonconformist.
Surely.
So your friendships, your relationships, that must have been somewhere. Did that have any impact on you?
So, I've also, I think from my teenage years, I read this somewhere and it kind of became my motto. It said, I read this and it said surround yourself with freaks. It makes life more interesting. So it was a unconscious decision in a way that the people around me were nonconformists also. So, and at whatever level, at whatever age that it was a very intrinsic thing in them that they couldn't hide or they didn't want to hide. That was the main thing.
Sometimes you can't hide that.
You can't hide it because that's what it
That's
is. So along the way, and because thanks to my dad being a fighter pilot in the Air Force and the family moving around every couple of years, there was a constant interaction with different people, different level, different walks of life, different kinds of people, and so that kind of really broadened your horizons, and it gave you an experience. You had an exposure. I was very grateful for that. I had an exposure to different cultures, different people, and different ways of living. So that was very important, and so it has evolved in that sense. But I always was a rebel, and for that to kind of till very recently, it was. The rebellious, the Durga, the Kali inside me was always the one at the forefront. And it's only very recently that there has been change. And I think that everybody in our present contemporaries are feeling this change. There is a change afoot, and it's inside you, it's outside of you. You can see that very clearly, Everybody's feeling it. They don't know what this feeling is.
Oh, for sure. I think there's a change happening.
There's a severe change.
And we are not being able to probably articulate this totally. But so many lives have changed. So many people are talking about different things. I don't know whether it is the pandemic that's caused all of us to rethink, about life. But I think that the pandemic has kind of reiterated that need for change. And that, But I also, like just saying that the change from that rebel to today of the rebellion has changed. What is the rebellion now?
The rebellion is of a very different feeling. It's for the other people around me, like the women around me who I feel that I can help in a way. And it has become very, let's say, less judgmental. In my 20s, I was pretty much, it's my way or the highway. If you're not in my wavelength or you are not my, my posse, my, team, you don't exist. You don't exist. I have no time. And today I feel like every woman is a sum total of her experiences.
Absolutely
and
true.
I have become much less judgmental because I also realize that what I see is not necessarily the truth.
Story.
It's not the whole story.
Absolutely.
And so there has been a lot of understanding in that aspect, and I feel that is something that helps me to gauge other people and to respond to them in a way. So
your responses has changed, right?
My response has changed a lot, and there's been a lot more understanding.
I completely relate to that because I can see myself today with my responses also that's changed. Because I think over time we learn that all of us have a similar journey somewhere.
Yes.
And you know what, for women for sure, but I also think for men,
for sure,
I don't think they were even allowed to express emotions.
Totally.
And they're still not there,
And I feel really bad for them.
I feel really sorry because, at least with women, we, if you've had bad sex, you go back and talk to your friends about it. So, but with men, they cannot express, because
on an emotional level as well.
They've not been taught. They've never been taught at home to express. You're supposed to be the stronger person. You're supposed to not shed tears. You're a boy, so you cannot cry.
Yes, true, totally.
Yeah.
So, now I'm bringing up 2 kids. I have a 10-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, and
are they bohemian like you? Or
they have such style. They have such sometimes I'm like, oh my God, where did that come from? And everybody's like rolling eyes and guess.
So where did this style come from? Meghna, you're so, every time I meet you, I can't take my eyes off you.
Yeah,
you are so beautiful,
Yeah.
And when I say beauty, I'm not talking, where, you talk of Aishwarya Rai or, but beauty in a complete way. You have this beautiful face with the eyes and the hair and the jewelry. Where did the style quotient come from? Because you're different.
So I have to say, I also feel that that every woman is sitting on the shoulders of the women before her. I mean, if I saw life, I saw it on the shoulders of my mother, and she before that on her mother. And just going back to all the women who have been, a part of our lives, and as the grandmothers and the great grandmothers. And like my mother, she's a Bengali who married a Punjabi, And,
that must be a very interesting combination. It's a
exactly.
deadly combination,
exactly.
Meghna,
So also,
of being half Bengali and half Punjabi.
And she's a Bengali from North India, and my father was a Punjabi from South India. So he's a South Indian Punjabi, and she's a North Indian Bengali, and there was all of that. So and
was it an easy relationship for the two of them?
No, never, not. And because there was that, you decided to get married, and she was the 8th child out of 10, and 8 girls, and she was the 8th child, and she said that she decided to marry this Punjabi boy, and she also said that I'm not going to run away and get married. I'm going to get married from this home in Meerut in UP. And
she's from UP.
Yes, and my grandfather was a criminal lawyer in UP, so you can understand the kind of how the house and the money that was there, and large family and giant house. And she decided to marry this guy who just, when they met in Kashmir, and then they courted for 2 years. And then she said, but I'm not going to run away. I'm going to get married. And I'm going to. So that kind of quiet determination. My mother also didn't have this, I will bash on regardless what came to me. But she had this quiet determination, which, eventually she did get married to this guy, to my father. And then it was hilarious because she used to drive to school. After her school, she started teaching. And she used to drive to school in her car, in my grandfather's car, drop him to work and then go to school. And that was a life. And here she met my father, and then she married him, and he had a scooter. Mm-hmm. And he taught her how to ride the scooter. And for many, many years, we only had that scooter. And he's he taught her how to ride. And then he was like, you're on your own now. Because he was flying 5 a.m., afternoon flying, night flying. So he was never...
Did that have an impact on her?
She became from a very, cultured... Bengali, affluent family, to now say, okay, this is how much money you have. And she fought. She was a teacher. And again, this is a Punjabi, in my father also, to say that, why do you have to work? Is what I earn not enough for you? And she's like, it's enough for my needs. It's not enough for my wants, for my children's wants. I would like to work. And she fought for that initially. And she was a teacher. And really to see that all that she did, she'd get up in the morning, she'd fix breakfast for everybody in the family, she'd go to school, she would do her teaching, she'd come back home, she'd cook lunch, she'd correct her papers that she was as a teacher, that her duties. And then in the evening, she would...
the super women.
Super women, right?
Oh, my goodness, absolutely.
And then in the evening, get ready to socialize.
Absolutely.
Somebody's birthday, somebody's farewell, somebody's welcome.
And family get-togethers.
All of that.
I think all our mothers, who have worked, middle-class homes, because I was raised by a mother who was working, and she went against the entire household because she wanted me to go into a very, very expensive convent school, and because she wanted me to speak chaste English, which she had a huge complex about.
Sure.
And I think all those remnants stay back in your personality. Sure. And I can see so much of my mother in me today, where, like you said, I don't go about tom-tomming about the fact that, I want my right. But there's a steely determination that what I want is what I will get.
Yes.
And that can become a problem even in relationships with men, because men are not conditioned at times, many times actually, to handle a strong woman. So how did your relationship pan out? You are strong.
Yes.
You're this, you embody a Devi inside you that I can see sitting opposite me, Yes. How is it for you?
So, no man is an island. I feel that we all can say that. I can say I did it alone, but it's not true, because there is that support system that I've been very blessed to have. And my husband is, he's a very supportive guy. And I have that, we spoke when I speak about being an escape artist, it's like a constant planning of which is the next vacation, or where's the next motorcycle ride, or, where can we escape to? And he doesn't have that. He's a restaurateur, so he really needs to be, grounded. And that's I think has been a perfect balance for me. Because he's grounded, and I feel like I'm tied to a very, very long leash and tied to a very, very large tree. So that gives me the grounding that I need. And but at the same time, I feel that this is also the time for the alpha woman and the beta male. That there is so many of my women friends have very large personalities and really out there, and they have these very supportive men who are happy to be. How to be supportive. They don't need to be that they have to have that limelight on them. They don't really need that.
They don't need to be the conventional man, right? In inverted commas.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that has been a
Isn't
blessing.
that amazing, Meghna?
That's
We
really
are
a blessing.
actually watching change.
Yes, and being a part of it.
And being part of this.
Totally.
It's history in making, because,
Totally.
the next gen, your daughter, for example, my son,
Yes,
I
for
don't
sure.
think he would be expecting so many things that my husband expected out of me.
Surely. I haven't put food on a plate for my husband in like 20 years that we've been together. I might have done it once when he was sick, and even then it's like, because we eat differently. We are different cultures again, and the way that we eat our food is totally different. So I've never been asked to lay a plate. He always puts food back in the fridge. It's always like that kind of domestic, which I have been really running from in a way.
You're very blessed.
Very, very blessed.
Because there are a lot of women
yes,
who,
for sure.
who
And
really
I understand
struggle.
that. And I understand that.
Because a working woman is also a housewife.
Of course. It's like many, many roles that we play.
Absolutely.
And really, I mean, the kind of things that women can do is really nothing that the man cannot comprehend. It's incomprehensible for him to really gather all of that and inside of himself. It's just not possible for them. It's very one track. I see that in my children. I've got to tell you, my 10-year-old, if we are talking about something and he's walking, and then he'll, and I ask him a question, and he'll stop walking. He'll stop walking and he'll start, and he's like, I'm like, what happened? Carry on walking, right? We're talking, but we can walk and talk. And he's like, no, wait, I'm thinking. So, on the other hand, my daughter, she has a fake phone tucked under her ear, her handbag on the other shoulder, tying her shoelaces, having an imaginary conversation, and it's like multitasking to another level, which is just,
it's my not. Goodness, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's just the way that the people are built. It's not. We are equal, but we are not the same, and nobody should think that we are the same, because this kind of doing of the masculine energy of just doing, and the feminine energy of feeling, it's also now crossing over.
It is crossing over. And it's time that it needs to cross over.
Definitely.
Because or else you have very toxic emotional relationships with men who can't express.
For sure.
And, then relationships go completely haywire.
Yes.
And and I think expression is such a big thing. Now, tell me something about Levitate. When you shut the store, I'm sure your heart would have bled. It was 18 years of running this absolutely amazing store, and letting go of the wonderful girls that you had in your store working with you.
Yes.
And what are your plans now with Levitate now that you've gone online?
So, there has been, like I said, like a huge change, right? When I started Levitate, there was nobody more in that segment of doing, handmade product, handmade jewelry, and something different. Let's not just say the handmade is a very generic word for it.
Now there's a lot of talk about handmade.
There's so much. And the thing is that I started Levitate, like I said, it was about filling in a gap. And now that gap is not that much, and I do not want to fill in a gap which is a price fight, or I can sell something cheaper than you, or there's so many people doing very interesting, very beautiful things, and I feel like for me it's the next level again for Levitate. And it's a great brand, and I feel like it's been an extension of my personality. And let's say that now I want to take it to, like, let's say styling, or let's say something to do with women and how they perceive themselves, and take it to that, instead of making a product. Like, again, I would like to, if that product does come about, and it will, I'm sure there's something that is in the pipelines and I'm working on it. But it's going to be a product that, again, comes around as a gap being filled up, but there is nothing in that market.
And what is that gap that you intend to fill up?
So it's, can I say that? Like, it's something that I have had an idea for, is a new bra brand, which
Wonderful.
which is an indigenous homegrown. And what basically we would work on is, when you talk about organic fabric, again, these are like sustainable, these are words that
You've
are just...
always been doing this kind of work.
And so the thing is, again, I feel like there's so many international brands in the market, and it's all very synthetic.
It is.
You cannot be like sweltering in the Indian summer and have elastic, which is biting into your skin and, itching. And because I realized this, because during this lockdown, and something that I've been thinking about for a long time, that there is nothing in in that category where you would say that can we get the form back? Can we get a form that is supportive and that is stylish and does not have to have elastic that eats into your flesh?
But a bra without elastic is unthinkable.
So we're going to work on that, because there is it's a hosiery and it's about lining, it's about structure, and this is not a Saturday night party bra that you can go dancing.
It is your everyday bra.
It's an everyday and a comfort yet an upholding, let's say an upholder, it's called an under-shoulder boulder holder, it has to be something that does it well.
Okay.
It's that's a given. But yeah, that's something that I'm very passionate about. And I have been in touch with hosiery, there's a incubation center based out of Tirupur. And so we hope to,
the entrepreneur in Meghna doesn't die ever. She's always figuring things out. Yeah. How wonderful. That's really great. So tell me something, Meghna. What would you like to tell the listeners, because there's so many young girls. I'm sure that, every time I see you, I think there's such a message inside you of somebody who is so courageous to stand her stand, in a place that's so crowded with people trying to fit in. And you don't fit in. And when I say when you don't fit in, I don't talk about not fitting in by being, by being voluble about something, but so quietly your entire persona. I've never seen you be part of the herd. So what would you like to tell girls? Because so many girls, I'm sure, struggle because, they're different.
Yes.
And, people are not kind sometimes to them. Yes. And when they're young, they go through so much of crisis because believing that this unique thing that they have about them is probably wrong. Yes. And they curtail that and they keep, putting that back. And it has its own way of breaking out, like a little sapling. Sure. Sometimes it's twisted, sometimes it's broken. Yes. But, but it does come out in some places or the other. Sure. And, I just wish that, we realize that if there's something unique in you, you realize it really young.
Yes.
And you let that grow into a really, like you said about this tree that has got a strong foundation. Yes. For you to be able to have so many people under that shade.
Sure.
So how did you hold on to this? What is it that you would like to tell the listeners?
Yeah. So I feel like for young people, I feel like I just want to say that, how did I happen to do this? Yes, I was very blessed because for me, it was a process of elimination. What is it that you see yourself doing and what is it that you don't want to do? So let's make a list. Let's make a list of pros and cons. I could have done the corporate life and I could have earned a lot of money. I could have become really good at my work. And I could have grown from there, strength to strength. I would have had a car, I would have bought a house, I would have done that. But would I have been happy? So let's talk about, what is it that you want to, what is it that you see yourself? So there has to be a little focus in that. And I feel that everything that a person wants to do, they must do it at that moment.
Absolutely.
At that moment. Because you say that, okay, now I will do this later, and your later is never going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And again, for me, it might have been that I had a support system, but at the same time, sometimes the people around you who support you cannot see your vision, and you have to have that kind of, without a doubt. You have to want something without a doubt. And I feel that when that happens, it is you will only get what you really, really want. If you really, really want something, you will go for it. If you haven't gone for it, it means you really didn't kind of really, really want it. So find that thing that, that fills you with passion. Find out what kind of research can be done around it. You don't want to do something that everybody else is kind of doing, but find something that you can do a variant of. Tell your story with your sensibilities and make sure that there is there's your essence to it. But at the same time, find that niche for yourself and
go for it.
Go for it, because it's your duty to go for it. Today, if you say that my mother didn't let me or my husband didn't want me to do this, that's all bullshit. I understand that it is true, but at the same time, let's try and fight for it. Gather your team, your people around you, your supporters,
and you need to have supporters.
You need to have
absolutely.
That, even in whatever way, in whichever field, find those people. And I understand that it might be. I might be entitled to be saying this everybody should be able to do this, and sometimes people can't, but it comes at whatever time. And if you keep it in mind, if you keep that in mind, you will reach it. But don't let go of
something that you
don't
really
let
love.
go of that something that you really love, because just keep at it and keep wanting it. only then will it happen. It's not, if you stop wanting it, you're just going to go with the flow and kind of, lose out on that, is what I feel.
So, Meghna, thank you so much for being on this episode. So, if we were to find you online, what would be the Instagram handle and your Facebook page? If you could just share the link with us
So
on
on
the show.
Instagram, Levitate is Levitate India at Levitate India, and on Facebook as well. And I also have like my personal handle, which is Travel Rani, which is what
Travel Rani?
Yes, which
How
is
lovely is that?
Which is where I kind of do my personal things, and everybody says that maybe we should merge it, but I just feel that that is something that is a different aspect to my life, and Levitate stays about the craft and the industry that is such a home driven. Right now we're struggling. Right now the artisans are struggling, and the thing is that for the last 18 years, when I started working with the things that are being made, they're already, the people who made it were like 70-year-olds, and none of their children were creating that,
willing to do
that.
Yes,
very few people have been able to transition into that.
Absolutely.
So that's heartbreaking. So I just feel like if we can actually be a more sustainable choice of purchasing, and when I say sustainable, it is many ways, like whether you're swapping things, between your friends and keeping that sustainable, whether you're buying second-hand, fashion, that being sustainable, or you're buying less and creating something of your own, that being sustainable. There are many, many ways to kind of, take this forward, and instead of just doing fast fashion from, international brands, of just creating something of your own, give it your own personal touch and make it unique. I think that would be so fantastic.
Thank you so much, Meghna.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you.